Hi there, I'm Lisa Bronner, and this is another midweek mini live. It's number 7, and today we're going to be cleaning produce, specifically fruit. So this time of year here in San Diego is when my fruit trees kick into high gear, and all my counters get covered in fruit, and all available containers end up holding fruit. So I kind of cleaned up what I have so that you could see it. At the moment I've got apples from my tree, pomegranates, limes, and pumpkins, and that's only some of the pumpkins. There's actually a cool story about the pumpkins in that I didn't plant them. At least I didn't plant them this year. I planted them 2 years ago. I didn't get any pumpkins, and then this year they grew, and I got 25. So we're going to be having a lot of pumpkin around here. Anyhow, when I'm growing stuff from my own yard, of course I know exactly what's on it. I know that there are no pesticides or herbicides on it. However, if you are buying your fruit from the grocery store, you're not sure what's on it, or even from anywhere, it's going to have some field dirt on it. So I generally like to give it a good wash. The thing to know about fruit, you probably know this already, is that as soon as you wash it, it starts to degrade. So you don't want to wash it until it's ready to be used. So as soon as I wash these, I'm going to need to use them, or else they're going to start to shrivel up. I don't know why that is. Maybe somebody who knows more about fruit can put in the comments why when you wash fruit it starts to shrivel. So the other thing I love about apples, now if you've been around me for a while, you know I love apples. I grow a lot of them. I have 7 apple trees. Obviously this is just a sample, and I love to cook with apples. I make apple butter and apple pie. It's like my signature. So the thing I love about apples is, you hear in old stories about kids going to school, they give their child an apple and it's always so perfectly polished. Well, apples from the grocery store achieve that by waxing. But if you take just a regular apple and you polish it with any cloth, it gets so nice and shiny. And once again, I don't know what it is about apples. Plums do this too, that you actually can polish them just without putting any substance on them, and they get really nice and shiny. Can you see how nice and shiny that apple is? So anyhow, it makes a great centerpiece. Of course, you do need to eat it at some point. So I've got this bin of apples, and I'm going to process it by cooking it in my pressure cooker, making some applesauce. Some of it's going to become apple butter, but I want to wash it first. The other thing about growing your own produce is that you know that things don't end up always looking identical. That's the lie from the grocery store. So I've got all sorts of different sizes of apples. Some of them are kind of funky in their shape, like this one. It looks like it's leaning. I don't know, maybe it got blown. But they all taste great. So I'm going to fill my sink with just cold water, and then use either the Dr. Bronner Sal Suds or the Castile Soap. So, I should have filled that ahead of time. While that's filling, and I'm going to get closer in case that's really loud, this is the Sal Suds I keep by my sink. And if you're familiar with Dr. Bronner Sal Suds, you're going to see that this looks pretty thin. Sal Suds is really concentrated, and it's easy to use too much. So in order to make it so that I don't use too much, I dilute it in the bottle here. Otherwise, in my haste, I'm going to squirt a whole bunch into my sink, and then I'm going to have to rinse a lot of bubbles, and I'm going to waste Sal Suds. So I always I have a gallon in my laundry room, and I always fill this up to maybe about a quarter or so, and then the rest with water, just so that I don't use too much. So Sal Suds is what I keep by my sink for washing dishes, and the reason is that we have really hard water here, and the Castile Soap does react with hard water. That's just a feature of real soap. And on my glassware, that tends to cause a cloudiness. So for what I standard have by my sink, it's going to be Sal Suds. Either of them will work to wash produce. So this is the almond Castile, and it's also very concentrated. So I was thinking, now how much Sal Suds am I actually putting in the sink, since as I said I've already diluted this. So because I'm going to put a good squirt in, I would say it comes to about a teaspoon of actual Sal Suds. That's going to be in the amount I squirt in here. So I'm going to go ahead and squirt in what I think is about a teaspoon. if I were using the Castile, and this is not diluted, it's the pure stuff, I would probably put in, for this big sink of water, a capful. So I'm going to call that maybe a tablespoon. I can't say that when I'm using it I measure, but that's probably what it comes out to. So now you can't see how bubbly my sink has become. Let's see if I can move you without messing things up. So Sal Suds is super duper bubbly. Can you see that? There we go. Yeah, so even that teaspoon of Sal Suds in there created lots of bubbles, so that's always fun to be able to play with bubbles. There we go. All right, I'm going to just plop these in here. I learned this year, by the way, these are red Fuji apples. Of my 7 apple trees, I have 2 Anna apples, which is a great home apple. I have a golden Dorset, that's actually my earliest apple. And then I have 2 red Fujis and 1 green. Oh, and I also have a Granny Smith. And the reason I have the variety is because when you make apple butter, applesauce, even apple pies, it really tastes better if you have a mixture because you want the sweetness, but it's actually the tart ones that have more apple flavor. So if you get the mixture, you get all that. So, and I also have the variety, so I have apples coming all year round. Anyhow, so I've filled this with apples. They are floating. Apparently they are less dense than water. And I'm just gonna, just kind of give them a rub as I am agitating them around the sink here. As I said, I love apples. I think they're so pretty. So I'm going to show you again the apples in the sink here. And if you feel or see extra dirt on them, just give that a wash. I don't like to leave apples or any fruit soaking in water because it's actually absorbent. Oops, this one's not so hot, so set that one aside. They're actually absorbent, and I don't really think that they will taste better with Sal Suds in them. It won't harm you, but nonetheless, I don't think that would be very good secret ingredient there. Okay, and I'm gonna set them in my strainer here. If you want a fast way to cook apples, use your pressure cooker. Add about half a cup of apple juice. I throw in some spices. I use the unfiltered apple cider. And then just cook them for like 4 minutes, maybe. And then I have a food mill because I do a lot of this, so I run them through my food mill, but at that point you could probably mash them with a potato masher. But the advantage of a food mill, not that I'm getting paid to say this, is that I don't peel them or core them. A food mill does all that for you. All I have to do is cut them so that they're small enough to go through the food mill. So like this one, which has come up again, my leaning apple, I would probably cut in quarters. So anytime I'm going to be cutting fruit, well, I don't know, I wash all my fruit just because, birds sit on trees and poop on fruit a lot of times, so I don't want to eat that. So I wash everything. As I said, I don't wash it until I'm about to eat it. My pomegranates, I always have to remember my pomegranates are ripe before they're totally red. If I wait for them to be totally red, they'll be rotten. And then I'll do the same thing with limes. The pumpkins I'll end up roasting and then running through my food mill. Oh, and here we have a friend. I have a spider. I live out in the country, and if it's not a black widow, I'm okay with it. It's not. I'm sure it's very unhappy to be in here. Go that way. Okay. All right, so that's how you wash fruit. I'm gonna cut some of these open just because they're so beautiful. I love the pattern of fruit. Everybody knows if you cut an apple in half, that one was actually a little young, so I don't have the seeds. But you know what makes a star? Isn't that great? A great apple stamping project. Oh, these ones are, you can't really see it because it doesn't have seeds. It only has one seed. But if the seeds were all in there, you would be able to tell that that was a star. With the pomegranate, there are so many ways to seed pomegranates, and I have tried them all. since I have my own tree, this is what I'm doing now. Lots of practice. So I just cut it around the equator and then I pry it open. This one's juicy. Okay. Now I know some people will just take this and put it on their citrus juicer. That's a little too adventuresome for me. So what I do is I've got my very big bowl and I just score it along the edge. Please don't cut yourself. Just make little, that's what, 4 or 5 little cuts, and I open it up like that. And then this is the fun part. If you ever need to get some anger out, here you go. Just seed some pomegranates, whap it, and they just fall out. Can you see that? They're just falling into the bowl. It's much easier. This is much easier than trying to get the seeds out. So instead of, you know, primal scream therapy, you can go whack some pomegranates. There's a quote for you. Okay, and oops, a little bit more over here. If you have a favorite pomegranate seeding method, you go ahead and put that in the comments. I've heard of the one you do underwater. I don't do that one very well. Okay, so there's a few left in here. I'll get them out, but as you can see, I've gotten most of them out that way. All right, so welcome to my life in the fall, which is all about fruit and fruit processing. Every night I'm cooking something different, and it's a wonderful problem. So thank you for joining me for this midweek mini live. We were washing produce with Dr. Bronner's Sal Suds and Castile Soap. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments section, and I will be sure to answer them afterwards. And let's see, if you want to know when I'm going live, go ahead and like the Going Green page. I will see you the next time we go green.